All right, guys, we got one more point to make.
Oh no.
No, we've been talking about it this entire time barely. KTM threw so much shade at Johann Zarco and then got sixth place with Pol Espargaro.
Fifth place.
Oh, sorry, fifth place.
Correct.
As Ev alluded to earlier, there is one bet that me and him have had previously for actual money. There was real dollars involved. It was donated
Funds,
to
dog.
a charity.
Legal tender.
Yeah,
$20.
and it was that Pol Espargaro would get a podium before the season was out when he was on Tech 3 Yamaha. He was like, I still have it in my head because I lost $20 over it. Yeah. He was in third position at Phillip Island. This is the race that Cal Crutchlow won, and fucking blows it in turn 4 in the hairpin, just like and crashes out. Look,
it was so good.
But so now we have in turn 4. Tyler Robb's sex tape.
If I ended up in Phillip Island and blew it into never mind.
Stay away from it. Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Don't try to battle me on those, Rob.
I had an invite at some point to race at Phillip Island in like World Super Sport 300. Well, it was like a pseudo invite.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was just like some guy wanted me to come by. Actually, if you're listening to this, which you should be because you're a fan, hit me up. I'm still down. I still have nothing to do that entire month. Whether or not I have the money is another story.
He pretends. He lives off Luca.
I don't actually.
Thanks,
it's too close to home at the moment. Struggling.
Yeah, those. So I mean, it was kind of crazy, right? Like Zarco, obviously his results have been pretty abysmal. He's not feeling it. He had that weird like post on social media. Where he was
why is he not feeling it? Because the fucking trellis frame.
Because he had a magical bike and now he's a shit bike.
Why is Pol feeling it?
Because
sweet trellis.
Because he rides like Marquez and he doesn't give a shit about what the frame feels like.
Nah, look, boys, we've talked about this too. You look at like Dovi on the Ducati. The new MotoGP era is not flash in the pan brilliance. You have to be dedicated to the bike for several years to really get in tune with it.
Yeah, you got to meld the two together, right? Yeah. There is no the only riders that show up and win right away on a bike are on bikes that are already well sorted and other people have won on, or Marquez, right?
And even then, that wasn't like Everett talks about the new era, right? That was 2013. Yeah. That was 6 years ago. I feel so old. You know what I mean? Like that was a whole different generation, like a whole different tire, a whole different group of people. But I think that to an extent, he's right. Like the day and age of jumping on the winning bike, and that kind of died with Maverick. Once things went downhill, you don't really jump on the bike and instantly get competitive. You have to. These bikes are so specific
And Jorge solidified the point.
Right.
Oh, he can't jump on the Honda, yeah.
Unbelievably so.
Couldn't jump on the Ducati.
Twice now.
Couldn't jump on the Honda, right. But yet, look at what the guy's done. We've repeated this ad nauseum. We're talking about a guy who beat Valentino Rossi straight up, who beat Casey Stoner straight up, and who beat Marc Marquez straight up. Like, he did that.
You can't take that away from him.
You can't take but you're talking about when you talk about 3 of the best guys people these days talk about, like they say, the GOAT, the new GOAT, and maybe the most naturally talented guy we've seen. Yeah. Right, exactly. He beat the starting infield of the Yankees. You know what I'm saying? Like he struck out the, you know what I mean? Like the Yankees top 3. Like that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
he beat them, and yet he can't get on it. He can't get on these bikes and make them win right away.
No, it's just not the new era. Now let me ask you this one, Rob. This is a question for Rob. Did the KTM lend itself to Le Mans as a track?
Not one bit.
So why this time? Why did Pol finally get a decent result?
I'm glad you asked that question because there is a definitive answer here. They tested here like 2 weeks ago.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
No, it had to. Yeah, so because they're a team with concessions, they can test pretty much wherever they want, how often they want, and they test it at Le Mans. That's part of the reason why. I mean, Pol was quick out of the gate, right away. Like was consistently in the top 10. Right, made it into Q2.
Yeah.
All those results stem from testing. Normally, in a normal weekend, we'd see that advantage would disappear by Saturday morning or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately for the other factories, good for KTM, Saturday was a wash, literally. Yeah. So, yeah.
But
it's like I planned that one.
Rob's got jokes. Jokes on jokes. Jokey joke, Rob.
I've got jokes. jokes.
But then we end up Sunday, right? Sunday is cold conditions, right? But dry. Something that we didn't even really get that on Friday. Friday wasn't that cold.
But dry. Didn't get it on Friday.
Oh God, that's bad. But so like all those laps that KTM spun and had Pol Espargaro like sussing out his base setup were so beneficial for him getting those results and having that consistency. It's just like everything. The electronic setup, the chassis setup, using the tires.
This is Le Mans, though. This is not some random. This isn't like going to Thailand and having that, right? They've been there forever. These guys have thousands of laps around Le Mans. Like the
KTM for the series, KTM for the championship.
Right, KTM. Right, that's how I view it.
Sorry, Mark.
Right, exactly.
It's over now.
But I mean, for me, yes, I get your point, Rob. It makes sense. They tested, they have some back, but this is not some esoteric track off the calendar that we don't test that much, or where the weekend was so odd. They had Saturday was a wash, but we're talking about a track that they're at every year. We're talking about a track that these guys have been riding all for 20 years, for 15 years, for 10 years, however long, or in Rossi's case, 8,000 years.
38.
Yeah, exactly. Like the amount of laps these guys have, I refuse to believe that this result is simply up to the fact that they had some testing. I mean, I don't know, man. Pol's looking at Zarco. He was the golden boy. Zarco did way better than him on Yamaha. They get to hear the KTM boss just put Zarco on blast. Zarco's been talking shit about basically the bike that Pol created and developed. Pol had something to prove here, man. Whereas Zarco was thrown under the bus.
All right.
I mean, hey, hold on.
No. To go back to the previous point, I got a thing that throws a slight spanner, to quote the Brits, into your. They've been there for decades and stuff. The track was repaved in 2017, early 2017.
That's just a minor piece of it.
Is it?
He means layout, just the whole nine.
Is it though? Right? Like it's. There are certain tracks that on the calendar that it just seems like we get more variability because like the weather is shit, which we already talked about. The track has been repaved. If you have to go as far back as the switch to Michelin's and the spec electronics, right? There's things stacking up that prevents all that data usage from a decade ago. Mm-hmm. And it's just helping. It's helping a little bit. It's not helping all of it.
It's your point. It's a little bit. It's a little bit of reset, right? It's a little bit of a, hey, we're all starting baseline, new scratch setting.
Little bit of this, little bit of that. You can get with this, and you can get with that.
I feel like the hamsters are going to be more popular than us.
The what?
The hamsters.
What hamsters? What?
That song was used in like a Kia commercial with hamsters.
Okay, Richard Gere.
No, it would popular culture from like 3 years ago. God damn it.
What is happening right now?
Black Sheep, like they licensed their song to fucking Kia, and hamsters sang the song.
Kev, out of left field, fucking Richard Gere shit. Oh
terrible,
my god,
terrible.
Okay, I don't know where to go from that.
Where were we?
I just think that. Let's take a quick vote.
Okay. All right, Ev.
Let's take a quick vote, and then your audio disappeared.
Try again, Ev. Tell us what do you want to vote on?
Was it a flash in the pan, or is he going to be consistent?
Oh, flash in the pan.
Okay.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think they'll be lucky if Pol is fighting consistently for top tens.
Yeah, no, that's so because of the testing, because of the conditions, because of the lack of Saturday, it just brought that level. Like that variability level up to Pol getting 6th position and 6 seconds off of the winning.
So here's what's crazy. We've talked about how money generally rules motorsports. and we've talked about it a couple of times in this episode about Petronas and now Red Bull, KTM. Do we actually believe that money can buy them championships if they decide to do it?
Not ahead of ideology, and I'm going to have to agree with Rob on this. Yes, and to an extent, money buys engineering, it buys software engineers, it has the ability to buy the best riders, it has the ability to invest the most in the product. But if you limit yourself by an ideology of a steel trellis frame,
holy shit.
Again, I mean, at some point you have to say, what did Ducati do? They joined.
They conformed.
They conformed, and what did they do? They consistently win with a guy that no one thought was a consistent winner. For me, yes, Red Bull KTM could be a championship contending bike for a number of reasons. They have a huge budget. They have massive resources. They have a connection to the best rider in a generation that they could realistically steal if they really wanted to flex their fucking nuts a little bit, because money talks, right?
And I would if I were them, and you have the money.
At some point you got to, right?
Yeah.
But if you are stuck in an ideology and you like it brings you back to, like, remember Dogma when Chris Rock is talking about beliefs versus ideas? If they're stuck on the belief and the ideology that we will win with a trellis frame, you are limited yourself in scope so much that it doesn't matter how many funds you have.
I mean, if you want to win, you throw out all limitations. You don't start with one, and like the limitation is it's a fucking motorcycle with a 1,000cc engine and has 2 wheels. Like you don't limit yourself in any other way.
You don't put yourself in a box.
Yeah, which is why we see innovations out of Ducati for them pushing the envelope.
No one puts Baby Zarco in a box.
No, it's
in a corner.
Except Baby Zarco.
Except for KTM.
Right.
KTM.
So yes,
That's a good point.
You could spend your way to a championship, and that's the nature of most sports. You know, you're gonna have a hard time arguing that for the most part, or maybe the Patriots don't, but in a lot of sports, the ability to do that, that is a nature of the society that we live in. But if you willfully restrict yourself for the sake of something to prove, I don't know, could Floyd Mayweather go win a boxing match with one hand tied behind his back? Maybe. And if you put a hell of a lot of time and effort into it, probably against a serious number of mid-level opponents.
But not against the number 2.
Not against anyone of consequence.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so and that's the thing, right? Not only do they have the box of the trellis frame, they've already told us specifically they're not gonna they didn't attempt to hire Marquez because they'd rather spend the money on chassis development. Valid for now, but if they keep that same mentality for in 2 years when contracts come around again, or a year now, and don't go after him because they think that it's not worth it, they're restricting themselves considerably.
Kev, I have it. It's right in line with your Marquez concept.
Mm.
They are going to make a twin spar frame, but they're going to paint it in such a way that you can't tell, and it's going to look like a trellis frame.
That'd be fucking hilarious.
But it's really going to be
no way.
Right. I mean,
that would be awesome.
Or start doing like what MV Agusta does, where they have the trellis and the aluminum subsections.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see KTM win, but it's frustrating. I've said this a million times. Like, we've talked about this before. When a rider does bad, it's on the team boss to take that on to him, right? Just like a fighter or his manager. Last episode. So for 5 races in, like, look how bad Jorge did before he finally came to grips with it. And he's basically expecting twice as much from a rider with half the results, right? Like, Zarco's not Jorge. And yet they want him to be adapting quicker and faster to a less successful bike, like, and they're gonna put him on blast and throw him under the bus about it. I think they're sort of sabotaging him now. Maybe Pol Espargaro took that and got some inspiration out of that and said, "Hey man, I'm gonna sneak in, get in these guys' good graces. If I just put pedal to the metal, so to speak. Obviously it's a bike, so it's throttle, but and go for it, right? And I can snag something because from comparative sake." Like, even though we're only talking about 6th and 15th, like, right now, Pol Espargaro is, like, job site hot. And by job site hot, I mean like when you work in construction and you're on the job site and you haven't seen a chick in like 2 weeks, and then some fucking chick or dude over shows up and they're like a 6, but on the job site they're like a 9, son. You know what I'm saying?
That's
you've
like
been
San
out,
Jose.
Right? It's like San Jose. You've been in North Dakota and you've been doing oil rigs for 6 months, working 712s, and you haven't seen a member of the opposite sex.
Titties.
That 6 is a fucking 12, son.
I
like
thought you were gonna say prison hot.
Right, prison hot works too. You
that
know
works.
What I mean?
Yeah, you're not wrong, Rob.
It's the same analogy. Like right now, that KTM boss is thirsty, son. That dude has his ass out on the gram so bad. Thirst ass photos he's putting up there. And Pol Espargaro is like, fuck it, I'm gonna slide into the DMs. This fucking bitch is thirsty. That's Pol right now, and he's gonna do it. So that 6th looks like a 2nd.
Yep. No, and that's exactly how they treated it. I mean, it is their best result to date, if I'm not mistaken.
By the way.
No, they got he got a podium on the bike. What the fuck are you talking about, son?
Sorry, you're right. Yes, result, but I'm pretty sure, is this the closest they've finished to the leader? I'm gonna go look it up.
Yeah, depends on what you
keep talking.
Time wise, yes.
Yeah, there's multiple ways to
finish. Yes, yes.
To like weight your result and to classify how good you've done. Example, a 3rd place in a wet race or a cold race might be different than in a nice dry race. So only a few seconds off the leader, but it's a 6th, not a 3rd, so it's a little bit different. But
I mean, yeah, it even seemed like Cal rated his dry podium better than his wet wins, right? And then his actually, yeah. So Pol finished 7.4 seconds behind in the wet to get on the podium, and he was 5.9 seconds behind in this race in the dry.
Right. Yeah. They said this is very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say real quick, the one thing we've noticed is all these bikes we've been kind of paying attention to over the years that are trying to rise up and get in the mix, they generally perform well on Sunday when it's like cooler conditions. I don't care who the tire brand's been. I don't care what this like cooler conditions. People aren't finding grip or something. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, it's the variability, right? The track comes into it, the conditions, like it's the anti-Jorge, right? When shit isn't optimal, there's more variability, and it allows these other teams to kind of get closer to the front, unless you're Aprilia.
We've said this 1,000 times, right? It's the last 1.5%. It's the last 0.5% that's the hardest to get. So if the track conditions negate that last %, it's a lot easier. When did Mav get Suzuki's first win? Silverstone in abnormally cold conditions. When did Ben Spies get his first win? Assen, abnormally cold conditions. Like you get these conditions that just take the sharp end of the stick away a little bit, and suddenly it's a little bit closer, and it flatters those things. Like, this is what I've said before about how the Honda is actually the best bike on the grid, because that bike enables the rider to get the most out of it. So theoretically, the Honda that Marc Marquez rides is the best engineered bike on the grid, because it's engineered the best for one single person. And so when you're trying to get the 99.98 and that last 0.02% out for like perfection, only a handful of bikes on the planet can do that. Take away a couple percents of perfection, and suddenly things are a lot closer.
Yeah, actually, I mean, that's a good point, because that's the only factory that's willing to go that far, right? To it seems like they're the only ones willing to build a motorcycle for specifically one person. Right, like Yamaha, it classically has been, we'll build a bike that anyone can ride, and like we've seen a little bit of disagreement from Rossi and Mav over the last 2 years. Like the root of their complaints all come down to the same thing. Like it's the electronics. We don't have drive grip, but there are other little parts that they disagree on, and that's taking away development time. Whereas HRC seems to say, hey, fuck you, Cal. We don't give a shit. Like, we're going to build the bike for Marquez. You're going to test the parts.
Honda's got a different strategy. They just know we're championships. They're a fucking horse. We're going with this guy, and that's that. They've got championships.
Their strategy is pay for the best guy, win with the best guy, and keep it going for as long as possible.
And they did it with Rossi until Rossi left.
Yep.
Right. Honda is going 90s basketball. One superstar and everything is built around it. Whereas everyone else is going
LeBron
2000s and 2010s basketball. Try to build something where everyone. Yeah, exactly. We're talking about the difference, the conceptual difference between a team based around LeBron and a team based around Jordan.
Yeah.
That's a very...
We only care about one guy, and that one guy is everything is built around it. All eggs in the basket, and that's how it's happening. It's different from the Stoner effect because Casey jumped on the bike and won right away, and then they seem to ignore him.
That's a whole anomaly.
That's a different anomaly, whereas Marquez, they're saying, and I think there's genius to it, because we talk about software engineers, we talk about traction control, spec tire. What's the last, great
You got me
thing?
going, Kev. Oh,
right, I'm talking about tires and electronics. His nips are full diamond. Rob just went fucking 6 to 12 midnight like that, son. But what's the, one last thing that really... truly is purely the rider and the rider's feel with the bike, and that's front end braking. There's no electronics, but there's the least amount of electronics involved in that. It's pure down to the synergy between the rider and the chassis, and they're putting everything into that. You can see it in how he spends his practice weekends, and they're saying that we found a spot where we can get the 1% that no one else can get. We don't care how all around your bike is. We're going to throw it to Shaq, and he's going to dunk in your fucking face, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, and going back to Ev's question previously, if Le Mans is a track that suits the KTM or whatever, right? We saw HRC a couple of years ago. They got to Le Mans and they were having to push the front so hard to keep up that they just were out of range. They weren't there. Marquez crashed. Whereas now they've got the bike in range and they're able to do exactly that, and Marquez just runs away with it. Right, KTM is trying to pull the HRC. They're trying to build a bike that's similar to the Honda, right? They've got the 2013 RCV right now, or the 2014 RCV, right? It's not. It's good on corner entry if you push the brakes really hard. It's shit if you don't. The electronics aren't all the way there, and the engine is too unstable and too aggressive to get really good drive out of the corners. So Pol, who has trained himself over the past couple of years to ride it, is able to do that. But you bring in 3 new riders and put them on that bike.
They have no fucking idea.
They have no idea because they've been
about the longevity,
Yeah, they've been trained on other chassis.
Exactly. Zarco comes in and he's used to looking at this immaculately carved from solid aluminum, whatever, perfect example of machinery in its purest, sculpted form. Damn near a piece of art. Turn it upside down, sign it RM Mutt, say Duchamp, write thing's a fucking piece of art in any modern art museum. Exactly. Then you have the KTM, which looks like a bunch of dildos welded together and painted orange, and they're ride this. That looks like a shitload of dicks that they welded together and said, ride this bad boy, and they call it the Saturday Night Special. Can you imagine being that? You're literally talking about going from NASA technology to the sex shop on the corner of 3rd and 8th. What is possibly happening in Zarco's mind? Where Zarco was thinking, I used to be fighting for wins and I used to be the guy. Pol's just happy to have a ride. He's like, you know what? If you need me to ride this dick to get paid, I got to do what I got to do.
Hard and I'll ride it long.
I will ride that orange dildo till the cows come home, because that's my job.
Well,
and he's been doing it for years.
And they shaped the dildo for him.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they gave him every tool that he
first
needed.
In on the dildo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're,
I jumped on first, boys.
I defy anyone out here to look at a trellis frame and not tell me it looks like a bunch of dildos welded together. It's the exact diameter of a dick. welded in dick length connections to make a giant conglomerate of dicks that you put two big black rubbers on and ride around. What a sport that we follow.
Kev,
what a sport of kings.
What if the Iron Throne was made of dildo dicks instead of swords?
Oh, I'm sure that Perry
it would have melted a lot
out.
faster when Drogon fucking breathed on it. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
What are we doing at this point?
Yeah.
We're gonna finish this off with a prediction. Is what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Ooh.
How many rounds? How many rounds until Zarco beats Pol straight up and consistently?
Oh, that's too many questions in one question for a prediction.
Okay, how many rounds until Zarco beats Pol at all? Has he beat him yet? He has not beat him yet.
Beat Pol this year.
Oh, okay, so if I say how many rounds, you can say like all of them, and that means he doesn't.
That's
beat
a
him
very
this year.
open-ended question. That could be. There's a lot of racing left. I don't know. I can't.
How many rounds? How many rounds? How many weekends? Do you think he beats him this year in like 5?
He does not beat him this year.
All right.
No way.
Unless he
Are we
crashed out.
counting DNFs? I mean, yeah.
No. They got it. They both have to finish the race.
A real heads up.
Wow.
This year.
You don't think Zarco is going to beat Pol at all this year?
I think mentally he's fucking over it. He's just he's like, why did I sign?
So Zarco got a new coach, a new rider coach.
Yeah.
Right. He's taking the Mav approach, right? Like fire the old guy, get rid of the.
He's taking the wrong approach. I try to tell this to Kyle. The more you know, the slower you go. The moment you start focusing on your mindset, and the moment you're thinking about anything other than how do I make this, it's not the sport for that. This is not like
the coach might be telling him to shut the fuck up and ride the bike, right? There is a chance.
He hired a
Russian?
No
way a coach.
Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
What'd you say, Ev?
Right.
I said
he hired a Russian. Right. Shut the fuck up and drill. Right.
Shut up and ride, bitch.
Right.
I don't think he did. I'm assuming his coach is French. I don't remember what his name is.
That was his first mistake.
All right. Frenchman should hire a Russian to be a rider coach.
He's not going to beat him this year. It's that simple.